Captain Jake Morrison stared at the empty space where Earth's solar system should have been bustling with ships. 50 years had passed since any alien vessel had crossed into human territory. The great metal barriers that the Galactic Council had built around human space still floated in the darkness, warning all ships to stay away. Jake commanded the patrol ship Starbound. His crew was made up of Zilani soldiers, tall blue beings with 4 arms and eyes that could see in the dark. They had been patrolling the border for months, making sure no one tried to break the old treaty. The treaty was simple. Humans stay in their space, and everyone else stays out. "Captain," called out his second officer Vex, "we are picking up a signal." Jake walked over to the control panel. The screen showed a blinking red dot near the edge of the forbidden zone. "What kind of signal?" "It is old, very old. The computer says it is human technology." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. All Zilani had 2 hearts, and both of his were racing now. Human technology had not been seen outside their space for 50 years. "Are you sure?" Vex checked the readings. Again, "Yes, Captain. It is a distress beacon, but it is coming from outside the human border." Jake looked at the star map. The signal was coming from an old asteroid field that had been empty for decades. Set course for the signal, but stay outside the human border. The Starbound moved through space toward the mysterious signal. Jake had heard stories about humans from his grandfather, who had fought in the war 50 years ago. The old Zilani had told him that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and too clever for their own good. That was why the galaxy had agreed to lock them away. As they got closer to the signal, the ship's computers began to pick up more information. "Captain," said Vex, "the beacon is attached to a small station. It looks like a research facility." Jake could see it now on the main screen. The station was small and dark, floating alone in the asteroid field. It looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. Solar panels hung broken from its sides, and meteor impacts had left holes in its metal walls. "Any life signs?" Jake asked. "Negative, Captain. The station appears to be dead." But Jake was not so sure. Something about the station felt wrong. Scan for power sources. The computers hummed for a moment. Then Vex looked up with surprise. "Captain, there is a small power source deep inside the station. It is very weak, but it is there." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Prepare a boarding party. We are going to investigate." "Sir," said Vex, "the regulations say we should report this to the Galactic Council first." "The regulations also say that any threat to galactic security must be investigated immediately," Jake replied. "A human station outside their borders could be a threat." Jake and 3 of his soldiers put on their spacesuits and flew over to the station in a small shuttle. The airlock was old, but still worked. As they entered the station, their lights cut through the darkness. The walls were covered with human writing that none of them could read. They moved through empty corridors filled with dust and broken equipment. Jake had never seen human technology up close before. It looked different from Zilani or Korthuk. Designs more rough and practical, like it had been built to last rather than to look pretty in the center of the station. They found what they were looking for. A large computer terminal was still running on emergency power. Next to it was a small chamber with a window. Inside the chamber, Jake could see a figure in a white uniform. "By the stars," whispered one of his soldiers. "Is that a human?" Jake stepped closer to the chamber. The figure inside was smaller than a Zilani, with pale skin and dark hair. The chamber was some kind of sleeping pod. A small screen next to it showed vital signs. The human was still alive. Jake touched a button on the console, and the stations computers came to life. A holographic display appeared in the air, showing star maps and data that Jake could not understand. But one thing was clear. This station had been watching the galaxy for 50 years. The sleeping chamber began to open. With a soft hiss, the human inside stirred and opened her eyes. She looked at Jake and his soldiers with confusion, and fear, and something that might have been hope. Where am I? She asked in the common galactic language, though her accent was strange. You are on a research station near the border of human space, Jake said. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Zelani patrol ship Starbound. What is your name? The human sat up slowly, looking around at the alien faces surrounding her. Commander Lisa Hayes, Earth Defense Force. What year is it? Jake told her, and he watched as the color drained from her face. 50 years, she whispered. I have been asleep for 50 years. She looked at Jake with eyes that seemed much older than her face. Tell me, Captain Morrison, what has happened to the galaxy while I slept? Jake did not know how to answer. How do you tell someone that their entire species had been locked away from the rest of the universe? How do you explain 50 years of silence? Perhaps, Jake said carefully. You should tell me what you remember first. Commander Lisa Hayes sat in the station's small medical bay while Jake Morrison's ship doctor checked her health. The Zelani doctor was gentle but thorough, running scans that showed Lisa was in perfect condition despite sleeping for 50 years. Cryosleep worked well, the doctor told Jake. She is healthy and strong. Lisa looked out the window at the Starbound floating nearby. I remember when your people first joined the Galactic Council, she said to Jake. Your ships were much smaller then. Jake felt uncomfortable. He had been taught that humans were dangerous enemies, but Lisa seemed tired and sad rather than threatening. Commander Hayes, can you tell me about this station? Why were you sleeping here? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she activated a wall screen that showed old video files. This station was built to watch and wait. We knew that someday someone would find us. The screen showed images from 50 years ago. Human ships flying between the stars, human colonies on distant worlds, humans working alongside aliens in space stations and trading posts. It looked like a different galaxy. What happened? Jake asked. Lisa touched another control, and the images changed. Now they showed laboratories and research facilities. It started with Dr. Alex Turner. He was our best scientist, studying alien biology and genetics. Alex made a discovery that changed everything. The screen showed a human man with gray hair and kind eyes, standing in front of a large computer display. Data scrolled across the screen, faster than Jake could read. Alex found something strange in the DNA of several alien species, Lisa continued. Patterns that should not exist in nature. Genetic markers that looked like they had been designed rather than evolved. Jake felt his two hearts begin to race again. What do you mean, designed? Alex discovered that many of the species in the Galactic Council were not natural. They had been created, engineered by someone else a long time ago. Lisa's voice was flat and emotionless, like she was reciting a report. Your people, the Zelani, the Korthic Empire, the Trilaxian Collective. All of you were made to be something specific. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. That is impossible. Alex thought so too at first. He ran the tests dozens of times. He checked and double-checked his data. But the results were always the same. Lisa changed the image to show genetic sequences that meant nothing to Jake, but clearly meant everything to her. The Zelani were designed to be perfect soldiers. 4 arms for better fighting, 2 hearts for endurance, night vision for stealth. The Korthic were made to be builders and engineers. The Trilaxians were designed to be telepathic coordinators. Jake wanted to argue, to say it was all lies, but something deep inside him knew it was true. The Zelani had always been natural fighters. Their entire culture was built around military service and honor in battle. It was just who they were. When Alex shared his discovery with the Galactic Council. They did not thank him, Lisa continued. They were terrified. Imagine learning that everything you thought you knew about yourself was a lie. That your entire species was created to serve some purpose you never chose. The screen now showed recordings of heated debates in the Galactic Council chambers. Alien voices shouting in languages Jake recognized. Fear and anger filled every word. The Council demanded that Alex destroy his research. They wanted all records of the discovery erased. They said it was too dangerous, that it would cause chaos. If other species learned the truth, and humans refused? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Humans believe in truth, Captain Morrison. We believe that knowledge belongs to everyone, not just those in power. Alex wanted to study the genetic markers more, to learn who had created the engineered species and why. The Council saw this as a threat. Lisa activated another file. This. One showed space battles, human ships fighting against overwhelming odds. The humans were outnumbered, but they fought with a creativity and determination that surprised their enemies. Captain Ryan Foster led our fleet, Lisa said, pointing to a recording of a human ship commander. Ryan was young and determined, giving orders to his crew as explosions lit up space around them. He used tactics that the other species had never seen before. Humans think differently in combat. We adapt, we improvise, we take risks that others would never consider. Jake watched the battle recordings with professional interest. The human ships were smaller and less powerful than their enemies, but they moved in patterns that made no sense according to standard military doctrine. They would retreat, then attack from unexpected angles. They would sacrifice smaller ships to protect larger ones, then use the larger ships in ways that seemed suicidal, but somehow worked. The war lasted only 3 months, Lisa said. But in that time, human forces crippled 3 star systems and destroyed half the Korthic fleet. The Council realized they could not defeat us through force alone. The recordings changed to show a meeting room where humans and aliens sat across from each other at a long table. Jake recognized some of the alien faces from old history books. General Patricia Wood represented humanity in the peace talks, Lisa explained. A woman in a military uniform sat calmly while alien leaders argued around her. The Council offered us a choice: stop all research into ancient genetics and accept isolation from the galaxy, or face complete extermination. And General Wood agreed? She agreed because she was smart. Humanity needed time to prepare for what she knew would come next. The creators of the engineered species would return someday. When they did, the galaxy would need humans to help fight them. Lisa stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. So we accepted exile. We agreed to stay in our space and let the rest of the galaxy forget about us. But we never stopped watching, and we never stopped preparing. Jake felt his world shifting around him. Everything he had been taught about the war, about humans, about his own people, it was all different now. Commander Hayes, why are you telling me this? Lisa turned back to him with eyes that held 50 years of loneliness and determination. Because, Captain Morrison, our long wait is almost over. Jake Morrison returned to his ship with more questions than answers. Commander Lisa Hayes had agreed to come aboard the Starbound as his guest, but Jake knew she was really his prisoner. The problem was that he was not sure who was actually in control of the situation. Over the next few days, as they traveled toward the nearest Galactic Council station, Jake began to see the galaxy through different eyes. He watched his crew going about their daily routines and wondered if everything they did was somehow programmed into their genes. Were the Zalani naturally good soldiers, or had they been designed that way? Lisa spent most of her time in the ship's computer center, accessing galactic databases with permission Jake had reluctantly given her. She was catching up on 50 years of history, and what she learned seemed to both sadden and amuse her. "Captain," Lisa said one morning as Jake brought her breakfast, "can you tell me about the last major war the galaxy fought?" Jake thought. "About it. The Trilaxian border conflict about 20 years ago. It lasted 6 months. How was it fought?" "Standard procedure. Both sides sent their automated battle fleets to fight in space, while diplomats negotiated on neutral ground. Minimal casualties, mostly equipment losses." Lisa nodded as if this confirmed something she already suspected. "And before that?" "The Corthic trade dispute, maybe 30 years ago. Similar situation. Captain Morrison, in the 50 years since. Humanity disappeared. How many soldiers has your species lost in combat?" Jake had to think hard about that question. Maybe a few thousand total, across all conflicts. "In the 3 months of war with humanity, the Galactic Council lost more soldiers than it has in the 50 years since," Lisa said quietly. "Do you know why?" Jake was beginning to understand, but he let her explain. "Because you have forgotten how to really fight. Your species, all the engineered species, have become comfortable. You fight wars with machines and computers now. You negotiate more than you battle. You have lost the ability to think like warriors." Lisa activated a wall screen and showed him data from across the galaxy. Population numbers, military strengths, technological development. "Look at this information, Captain. Really look at it." Jake studied the numbers. What he saw worried him. Birth rates were declining across most species. Military enrollment was at historic lows. Most young people chose careers in entertainment or virtual reality rather than defense or exploration. "Your people are becoming soft," Lisa said. "All the engineered species are. You were designed for specific purposes, but once those purposes were fulfilled, you began to lose direction." She changed the display to show economic data. "Trade is handled by artificial intelligence. Manufacturing is completely automated. Even exploration is done by unmanned probes. Where are the challenges that made your people strong?" Jake could not argue with the facts. His own younger brother had chosen to spend his life in virtual reality games rather than join the military. Most of Jake's friends were the same content. To let machines handle the difficult work while they enjoyed comfortable lives. "What about humans?" Jake asked. "What have your people been doing for 50 years?" Lisa smiled for the first time since he had met her. "We have been remembering who we are." She activated another file, and Jake saw images that took his breath away. Massive construction projects in space around Earth. Ships being built that were larger than anything in the Galactic Council fleet. Humans working in dangerous environments that would kill most other species. "Engineer Ben Clark oversees our deep space construction," Lisa explained, pointing to a human man working on what looked like a space station the size of a small moon. "We have built defenses and weapons that the Council could never imagine." Images changed to show laboratories where humans in protective suits worked with materials that glowed with their own light. "Dr. Amy Rogers leads our research into quantum physics and bioengineering. We have made discoveries that go far beyond what we knew 50 years ago." Jake watched humans doing things that seemed impossible. Working in the vacuum of space without suits, using technology that bent the laws of physics, building machines that were somehow alive. "How?" he asked. "Because we had to," Lisa said simply. "When you are alone in the galaxy, when everyone else sees you as a threat, you learn to be resourceful. Humans have always been good at adapting, but isolation made us better." She showed him more images. Human colonies in places where no other species could survive. Underground cities on worlds with poisonous atmospheres. Space habitats built inside asteroids and comets. "We spread beyond the borders you set for us," Lisa admitted. "Quietly, carefully, but we spread. There are human settlements in parts of the galaxy that the Council has never explored. We have been watching you, learning about you, preparing for the day when we would meet again. Jake felt a chill run through him. How many humans are there? Now? More than when you locked us away. Many more. The implications of this hit Jake like a hammer. 50 years ago, humanity had been a single species on a handful of worlds. Now they were spread across the galaxy in secret, technologically, advanced, and apparently much more numerous than anyone realized. Why are you telling me this? Jake asked. Why reveal your secrets now? Lisa's expression became serious again. Because something is coming, Captain Morrison. Something that will make our old war look like a children's game. She activated a new display, this one showing deep space sensor readings from the edge of the galaxy. Strange energy signatures, ships moving in patterns that matched no known species. Our long-range scanners detected them 6 months ago, Lisa said. Ships from beyond the galaxy, moving towards civilized space. We believe they are the ones who created the engineered species in the first place. Jake stared at the sensor data. The ships were massive, larger than anything he had ever seen. And there were dozens of them. The creators are coming home, Lisa continued. And when they arrive, they will expect to find their engineered servants waiting for them. Species designed to fulfill specific roles in whatever plan they have for. This galaxy? And humans? Humans were never part of their plan. We evolved naturally, without their interference. That makes us unpredictable, dangerous to their control. Lisa looked directly at Jake. It also makes us the galaxy's only hope of remaining free. Jake felt the weight of the universe settling on his shoulders. Everything was about to change, and he was not sure anyone was ready for what was coming. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything Jake Morrison had ever seen. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great chamber, their voices raised in panic and confusion. Jake stood at the back of the room with Commander Lisa Hayes, watching as their ordered galaxy fell apart. The crisis had begun 3 days earlier, when the first alien fleet had emerged from dark space near the rim of the galaxy. The ships were massive, ancient, and completely unlike anything in the Council databases. When they had sent a message to the nearest Korthak outpost, the language they used was so old that computers had to work for hours to translate it. The message was simple. Children, we have returned. Prepare for inspection. Admiral Carol Stone sat at the human delegation table, the first human to address the Galactic Council in 50 years. She was older than Lisa, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Next to her sat Colonel Steve Parker, a man who looked like he could fight a Korthic warrior with his bare hands and win. The entity calling itself the Architect has made its demands clear, Admiral Stone was saying to the assembled delegates. All engineered species are to return to their original programming. All technological development beyond approved parameters is to be stopped. All worlds settled without permission are to be abandoned. The Trilaxian representative, a tall being with multiple arms and a head covered in sensors, spoke up. Admiral Stone, how do we know you humans are telling the truth? About these beings? This could be an elaborate trick to gain power in the Council. Admiral Stone smiled, but there was no humor in it. Counselor Vexka, 3 of your outer colonies went dark yesterday. Your own scouts confirmed that massive ships are positioned around each of them. Ships that match the energy signatures we have been tracking for months. A Korthic general, his thick armor scarred from decades of construction work, slammed his fist on his table. Even if these beings are real, why should we trust humans? You disappeared for 50 years. You could be working with these aliens. Colonel Parker stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but carried a threat that made the entire chamber fall silent. General Thokmar, if humans were working with the Void Hunters, this conversation would not be happening. Your fleets would already be destroyed, and your people would be in chains. Jake watched as fear spread across the alien faces in the chamber. The delegates were finally beginning to understand what they were facing. The main screen activated, showing images from the outer rim. Massive ships, each one the size of a space station, moved through star systems like they owned them. Smaller vessels, sleek and predatory, swarmed around planets and moons. Wherever they went, communication stopped and all resistance ended. Quickly, these are the Void Hunters, Admiral Stone explained. According to our research, they are the ones who created most of your species millions of years ago. They seeded the galaxy with engineered races, then left to explore other regions of the universe. Now they have returned to collect what they see as their property. A new voice spoke from the chamber's communication system. It was cold, ancient, and spoke the common language with an accent that made Jake's bones ache. Children of our design, we are pleased to see that you have survived and multiplied as intended. We are the architect, first among those you call Void Hunters. We have monitored your development from afar and find some of your progress acceptable. The chamber erupted in frightened voices, but the architect continued speaking as if no one had interrupted. However, we note with displeasure that you have allowed an undesigned species to contaminate our careful work. The creatures that call themselves humans must be removed before we can proceed with the next phase of your evolution. Admiral Stone activated her own communication device. Architect, this is Admiral Carol Stone of the human fleet. We reject your authority over this galaxy. These species are free to choose their own destiny. The laughter that came through the speakers was like ice breaking. Admiral Stone, your species is an accident, a random mutation that should have been eliminated long ago. You will surrender yourselves for processing, or we will remove you by force. Counteroffer, said Colonel Parker, stepping forward. You leave this galaxy now, and we let you live. The silence that followed was broken by confused murmurs from the alien delegates. Jake could not believe that humans were threatening beings who controlled fleets that could destroy star systems. Curious, the architect said finally. You show no fear. Do you not understand that we created the very soldiers you would send against us? That we know every weakness of every species in this galaxy? Admiral Stone smiled. You created them, yes, but you did not create us. And that architect is going to be your biggest mistake. The communication ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Then the Trilaxian representative spoke up. Admiral Stone, what can humanity possibly do against such overwhelming force? Admiral. Stone exchanged a look with Colonel Parker. Counselor Vexkal, for 50 years you have believed that humans were locked away, isolated and helpless. What if I told you that we have been using that time to prepare for this exact moment? She activated a new display that showed star charts Jake had never seen before. Human colonies in distant star systems, hidden bases in asteroid fields, ships, moving through space routes that the Council had never mapped. Humanity spread far beyond the borders you set for us, Admiral Stone continued. We have colonies in 17 different star systems, research facilities in regions you have never explored, and a military force that has been designed specifically to fight enemies like the Void Hunters. Captain Dan Miller appeared on the communication screen, speaking from what looked like the bridge of a warship. Admiral, the fleet is ready. All ships report full combat readiness. Jake could see other human faces on smaller screens around the chamber. Lieutenant Kate Williams from a fighter squadron, Sergeant Mike Davis from a ground assault unit, Commander Tony Adams from what looked like a massive space fortress. How many ships? Asked the Korthic general. Enough, Admiral Stone replied. But ships alone will not win this war. The Void Hunters have a psychological advantage over the engineered species. They know how you think because they designed how you think, but humans think differently. Colonel Parker stepped forward. We have spent 50 years studying your people, learning your strengths and weaknesses. We know that the Zelani are brave, but follow orders without question. We know that the Korthik are strong, but think in predictable patterns. We know that the Trilaxians are intelligent, but lack individual initiative. The Void Hunters know these things too, Admiral Stone added. They are counting on your species to behave exactly as they were designed to behave. But we are going to teach you to be unpredictable. The chamber erupted in debate as delegates argued about whether to trust the humans or try to negotiate with the Void Hunters. But Jake was no longer listening to the politics. He was thinking about everything Lisa Hayes had told him. Everything. He had learned about his own people. The Zelani were designed to be perfect soldiers, but perfect soldiers followed orders without question. Humans followed orders too, but they also questioned, adapted, and improvised. Maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. The war for the galaxy's freedom was about to begin, and for the first time in 50 years, humanity would fight alongside their former enemies. The battle for the Korthik homeworld was where everything changed. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his ship as human and alien fleets worked together for the first time in 50 years. It was chaos, but somehow it was working. Admiral Carol Stone commanded the combined fleet from her flagship, a massive human vessel called the New Earth. Captain Dan Miller led the human strike force, while Jake found himself commanding a mixed squadron of Zelani, Korthik, and human ships. 3 days of fighting had taught them all to respect each other's abilities. Captain Morrison, came Admiral Stone's voice over the communication system. The Void Hunter command ship is moving toward the planet's surface. We need to stop it before it reaches the population centers. Jake looked at his tactical display. The Void Hunter ship was the size of a small city, protected by energy shields. That could deflect any normal weapon. Around it swarmed hundreds of smaller ships, each one deadly enough to destroy a normal fleet. Admiral, that ship has too much protection. We cannot break through with conventional weapons. Conventional weapons, yes, said a new voice on the channel. It was Dr. Amy Rogers, speaking from a human research vessel positioned behind the main fleet. Captain Morrison, we have something unconventional. On Jake's screen appeared a schematic of a weapon unlike anything he had ever seen. It was built around human quantum technology, but it incorporated principles that seemed to bend the laws of physics. What does it do? Jake asked. It severs the connection between the Void Hunters and their engineered servants, Dr. Rogers explained. The architect controls the other Void Hunters through a psychic network. If we can disrupt that network, their coordination will collapse. What is the cost? There was a pause before Admiral Stone answered. The weapon has to be delivered manually. The ship carrying it will not survive the mission. Jake understood immediately. Someone had to fly a suicide mission into the heart of the enemy fleet. Admiral, I volunteer. Negative, Captain Morrison. This is a human responsibility. But Jake was already making preparations. With respect, Admiral, this is everyone's responsibility. My ship is fast enough to reach the target, and my crew knows how to follow dangerous orders. Over the communication channel, Jake could hear heated discussions in the human fleet. Finally, Colonel Steve Parker's voice came through. Captain Morrison, if you are determined to do this, we will support you, but you will not go alone. Within minutes, Jake's mixed squadron had volunteered to escort him on the mission. Zelani fighters with their superior speed, Korthik bombers with their heavy armor, and human ships with their unpredictable tactics. It was exactly the kind of force that the Void Hunters could not predict or counterdot as they approached the enemy fleet. The Void Hunters responded exactly as their programming dictated. They formed defensive patterns, positioned their ships according to ancient protocols, and prepared to meet the attack with overwhelming force. They did not expect Jake to fly his ship directly through the middle of their formation, while his escorts attacked from 17 different directions at once. They did not expect the Korthik bombers to ignore their own safety and ram enemy ships. They did not expect the human fighters to use their own ships as weapons when their guns ran out of ammunition. "The coordination is breaking down," reported Lieutenant Kate Williams from her fighter. "The enemy ships are starting to make mistakes." Jake could see it too. The Void Hunter fleet was beginning to move in conflicting patterns as individual ships lost contact with their command network. The weapon was working, but they still had to reach the command ship. "This is Captain Dan Miller," came a voiceover. The radio. "All human ships, final assault. Remember what we are fighting for." The human fleet charged forward in a coordinated attack that sacrificed hundreds of ships to clear a path for Jake's mission. Captains like Tony Adams and pilots like Mike Davis flew their vessels into enemy formations with no hope of survival, buying precious seconds for the mission to succeed. Jake's ship raced through the gap in the enemy lines, the quantum weapon secured in his cargo bay. Void Hunter fighters pursued him, their weapons tearing apart his shields and armor. His crew fought back with everything they had, but Jake knew they would not make it. Then Commander Lisa Hayes appeared on his screen. She was aboard a human stealth ship that had somehow gotten ahead of them. "Captain Morrison, transfer the weapon." "To my ship. I can reach the target." "Commander, your ship is not armed. You will be defenseless." "Sometimes the best defense is to be too small to notice," Lisa said with a smile that reminded Jake of the first time he had met her. "Besides, I have been waiting 50 years for this moment." Jake made the transfer, watching as Lisa's tiny ship accelerated toward the massive Void Hunter command vessel. Enemy fire filled the space around her, but she flew through it like she was dancing, using every piece of cover and distraction available. The architect's voice boomed across all communication channels. "Impossible. A undesigned species shows capabilities beyond their genetic parameters." "That's because we were never designed," Lisa replied calmly as her ship approached the enemy vessel. "We chose to be what we are." The explosion when Lisa's ship hit the command vessel was visible from orbit. The quantum weapon tore through the Void Hunter psychic network like a virus, spreading chaos throughout their fleet. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination for millions of years suddenly found themselves alone and confused. The battle turned in that moment. Without their network, the Void Hunters fought like individuals instead of a unified force. The combined fleet, led by humans who had always fought as individuals, began to win. Admiral Stone's voice filled the communication channels. "All ships, press the attack." For Lisa Hayes and all the others who gave their lives for freedom. The war continued for 3 more months, but the outcome was never in doubt after that day. The Void Hunters, cut off from their coordination network, were defeated in battle after battle. Some fled back to the dark between galaxies. Others surrendered and asked to join the species they had once created. Jake Morrison stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers 6 months later, watching as the new treaty was signed. Humans had been granted full membership in the galactic community. The truth about the engineered species had been revealed, leading to massive changes in how every civilization saw itself. Some species had embraced their artificial origins, using the knowledge to improve themselves further. Others had rejected their programming entirely, choosing to develop in new directions. All of them had learned that being designed for a purpose did not mean they had to serve that purpose forever. Colonel Steve Parker, now promoted to general, stood beside Jake as the ceremony concluded. "Captain Morrison, what are your plans now that the war is over?" Jake looked out at the diverse crowd of humans and aliens working together to build a new future. "I think I would like to explore the galaxy properly this time, General. There is so much we still do not know about each other." And the humans? What will your people do with their newfound freedom? Jake smiled, thinking of all the humans he had met during the war. Engineers like Ben Clark, who built impossible things. Scientists like Amy Rogers, who discovered new truths about the universe. Soldiers like Dan Miller, who fought for what they believed in. I think humans will do what they have always done, General. They will surprise us. The galaxy was free, but freedom came with a price. Thousands had died in the war, including heroes like Lisa Hayes, who had sacrificed everything for a future they would never see. But their sacrifice had taught the galaxy an important lesson, that being created for a purpose was not the same as being enslaved to that purpose. Every species, whether natural or artificial, had the right to choose its own destiny. As Jake walked through the station corridors, he saw human children playing with alien youngsters, their laughter echoing off the metal walls. The next generation would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was stronger than control, where diversity was valued more than uniformity. The cost of defying the Void Hunters had been enormous, but the price of freedom always was. And now, for the first time in millions of years, the galaxy truly belonged to those who lived in it, rather than those who had created them.